I built this building. I do not mean I laid the actual bricks, though heaven knows I have hauled enough metaphorical mortar in my lifetime to qualify for a labor union card. I mean I breathed life into the steel and glass skeleton of Apex Cloud Systems, back when cloud computing sounded like a weather forecast, and my office was a repurposed supply closet in Tacoma. I know exactly how the air conditioning hums on the 40th floor because I approved the schematics. I know why the carpet in the lobby is that specific shade of slate gray, because it hides coffee stains. Today I was not Howard Vance, the founder whose portrait hangs in the boardroom. Today I was Howie, a 49-year-old facilities temp wearing a jumpsuit that smelled of lemon cleaner and sweat. I wore no watch, no signet ring, just a crooked name tag and a squeaky mop bucket. I was undercover. When you spend 20 years building a company and hear whispers that your legacy is turning into a toxic playground, you do not send a memo. You go to ground level. You put on the gray jumpsuit and become the ghost in the machine. I was standing near Elevator Bank B, the glass ones that offer a panoramic view of the city, a view usually reserved for the people who make six figures and decisions that ruin weekends. I was holding a spray bottle of disinfectant when the door slid open on the 12th floor, which housed our marketing and product strategy departments. The air instantly changed. It stopped smelling like floor wax and started smelling like fear, ozone, and expensive anxiety-induced espresso. Three young men walked in. They were that specific breed of corporate shark in training. 20-something associates wearing suits that cost more than my first truck and radiating an unearned confidence. Leading the pack was a kid I would later come to know as Jeffrey Collins. He had the kind of face that looked like it had been molded out of soft cheese, and his posture screamed absolute entitlement. He was holding a large latte with the casual disregard of someone who has never had to scrub a stain out of a rug. He was lecturing two junior employees, hanging on his words, as if he were delivering a sermon rather than reciting skimmed buzzwords. "It is about optics, guys," Jeffrey was saying, gesturing wildly with the hand holding the cup. "You have to dominate the space. If you are not the loudest voice in the room, you are just the furniture. Apex is a jungle. You eat or you get eaten." He spun around to emphasize his point, a theatrical pivot meant to showcase his Italian leather shoes. Physics, unfortunately for Jeffrey, does not care about career ambitions. The lid of his cup popped off. The latte did not just spill, it exploded. It was a scalding brown geyser that coated the pristine glass wall, the stainless steel railing, and a significant portion of the floor. It missed his suit by a miracle, but it managed to splash onto the toes of my work boots. Silence, absolute, heavy silence. I did not move. I just looked at the puddle, then at the dripping wall. In my old life as the chief executive officer, this would be the moment three assistants rushed in with napkins. In my old life, Jeffrey would be apologizing profusely, his face the color of a tomato. But I was not the chief executive officer today. I was the help. Jeffrey looked at the mess. He did not look at me. He looked through me. He checked his watch, then sighed, a sound of immense burdened annoyance, as if the coffee had assaulted him personally. "Gosh, what a disaster," he muttered. Then he turned his head slightly, locking eyes with the space above my left shoulder. "Hey," he snapped. I looked up. "Clean this mess up, janitor," he said. His voice was not angry. It was bored. It was the tone you use for a voice-activated speaker that is not listening. "Try to get it done before the vice president gets on at the lobby." It looks unprofessional. My grip on the spray bottle tightened. My knuckles turned white. In that split second, I had a flash of memory, firing a vice president of sales in 2008 for lying about expense reports. I remembered the power of my own voice, the way I could clear a room with a raised eyebrow. I wanted to use that voice now. I wanted to peel the skin off his ego with a few well-chosen sentences. "Clean this mess up, janitor." The doors dinged as we reached the lobby. I took a breath. I forced my posture to slump, letting the fire in my eyes die down to a dull, subservient ember. This was the test. If I broke character now, I would learn nothing. I would just be the angry founder on a rampage. I needed to know how deep the rot went. "Yes, sir," I mumbled, keeping my head down. Jeffrey did not even acknowledge my response. He stepped over the puddle, his shoes clicking on the marble, and walked out into the lobby without looking back. "Unbelievable," one of his minions whispered as they followed him. I stood alone in the elevator as the doors started to close, looking at the brown stain dripping down the glass. I pulled a rag from my belt loop, knelt down, and as I wiped up the lukewarm milk and sugar, I made a silent promise to the steel walls of the building I built. Enjoy the clean floor, Jeffrey, I thought, wringing out the rag with a violent twist, because I am about to mop the floor with you. The elevator started to rise again, carrying me back up into the belly of the beast. I was not just cleaning up a spill anymore. I was gathering evidence, and my mental bucket was getting full. You learn a lot about a person by how they treat the people they think cannot do anything for them. It is the ultimate litmus test of character, and at Apex Cloud Systems, the balance was dangerously toxic. My first full week, as Howie was a masterclass in invisibility. I realized quickly that a gray jumpsuit works like a cloak of complete erasure. I could stand 3 feet away from a confidential merger discussion, database architecture debates, or sensitive strategy arguments, and the executives would not even lower their voices. I was furniture, a background texture in the room, somewhere between the potted plant and the water cooler. I was assigned to the 12th floor, Jeffrey's primary hunting ground. I spent my mornings emptying recycling bins that smelled of stale energy drinks and protein bars, and my afternoons polishing the glass walls of the conference rooms, which gave me a front-row seat to the corporate theater playing out inside. Jeffrey, I learned, was an associate product manager. In corporate terms, that meant he was a glorified clipboard carrier with delusions of grandeur, but he played the political game with a terrifying efficiency. I watched him operate near the break room on Tuesday. A quiet woman from accounting, Clara, was struggling with a heavy toner cartridge for the communal printer. Clara was soft-spoken, the kind of employee who does 80% of the work and gets 0% of the credit. Jeffrey walked by and saw her struggling. He slowed down, looked at her, looked at the heavy cartridge, and then checked his phone. "Excuse me, Jeffrey," Clara asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Could you give me a hand? It is jammed and heavy." Jeffrey did not even stop. "I have got a hard stop in 5 minutes, Clara," he said. "Call facilities. That is why we pay them." He breezed past her, leaving her flushed and struggling. 10 minutes later, the vice president of operations, a man named Woodward, walked into the kitchenette. Woodward was an older executive with an expensive watch and a loud laugh. Jeffrey materialized out of thin air. It was like watching a predator smell blood. "Mr. Woodward," Jeffrey boomed, flashing a smile that was all teeth and ambition. "I was just looking for you. I had some thoughts on that Q3 supply chain bottleneck. I think we can optimize the vendor list by shaving off the bottom 10%. Woodward paused, pouring his coffee. "Is that so? Send me an email, son." "Already drafted, sir," Jeffrey replied with a practiced, hearty laugh that grated on my nerves. "Just wanted to put a bug in your ear. Here, let me get that stir stick for you." He handed the vice president a wooden stirrer with the reverence of a priest. I was 10 feet away, mopping a non-existent spot on the floor. The contrast was so sharp it could cut glass. To Clara, Jeffrey was a wall of cold indifference. To Woodward, he was a doormat. That night, back in my small temporary apartment, a far cry from my permanent home, I sat at a wobbly kitchen table with a notebook. No laptop, no digital trace, just a cheap, spiral-bound notebook and a pen. I titled the page "The Rot." Underneath, I started a list of names and incidents. 1. Jeffrey Collins, disrespect of peers, sycophantic behavior toward leadership, refused to assist colleague in distress. 2. The marketing team mocking the receptionist's clothing. 3. The human resources director ignoring compliance complaints. The list grew and my hand cramped. The physical toll of the job was real. My back ached in a way it had not since I was 22 and waiting tables, and my hands were dry from industrial soap. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the psychic damage of watching my company, my life's work, hollowed out by people who viewed kindness as a weakness. On Thursday, I found myself in the elevator with Jeffrey again. This time, he was on a call, bragging to someone. "I am telling you, it is a lock," he was saying, staring at his reflection in the mirrored ceiling. "I have got Woodward eating out of my hand. The old guard is clueless. They are dinosaurs. I will be running a division by Christmas. Just wait." He looked down and saw me holding a heavy trash bag. He did not mute the phone. He just looked at me with that dead-eyed boredom. "Hold on," he said to the phone. Then to me, "You missed a spot in the conference room. The table is sticky. Clean it. I gripped the trash bag. It contained the remains of someone's lunch and the smell was revolting. I will get it right away, I said, keeping my voice raspy. Good, he said, turning back to his reflection. Yeah, I am telling you, these people are sheep. I walked out on my floor, dragging the bag. Sheep, I thought. Wolves often mistake silence for surrender, Jeffrey. That is usually the last mistake they make. I added a new line to my notebook that night. Jeffrey Collins openly plotting advancement through manipulation refers to leadership as dinosaurs. Dinosaurs ruled the earth for millions of years. Mammals like Jeffrey were just snacks. The break room on the 12th floor was designed to foster synergy, but in reality, it fostered treason. It was an open-plan kitchen with exposed brick, an espresso machine that cost more than a small car, and a long communal table made of reclaimed wood. It was the sort of place where people were supposed to bond, but instead, it was where knives were sharpened. It was 10 in the morning on a Tuesday. I was under the sink, supposedly fixing a leaky pipe, but actually tightening a bolt that was already secure just to stay in the room. The cabinet doors were slightly ajar, giving me a clear view of the ankles and shoes of everyone who entered. Jeffrey walked in. I knew his pointed brown leather shoes by heart now. Click, clack, click. He was followed by the nervous shuffle of sneakers belonging to Oliver, a junior developer. Oliver was brilliant. I had seen his code commits on the private server I still monitored at night. He was the kind of quiet genius who built the engine while people like Jeffrey painted the racing's stripes. I do not know, Jeffrey, Oliver was saying, his voice thick with anxiety. The data migration is not stable yet. If we push the update on Friday, we risk a 4% data loss. That is thousands of user accounts. I need another week. I heard the hiss of the espresso machine. Jeffrey was making himself a cappuccino while Oliver poured his heart out about structural integrity. Oliver, Jeffrey purred, his voice patronizing. You are thinking like an engineer. You need to think like a winner. The client expects the rollout on Friday. If we delay, we look weak. I promised Woodward we would deliver. You promised? Oliver's sneakers squeaked as he shifted his weight. But you did not ask me. It is my code. It is our team, buddy, Jeffrey said. Look, here is what is going to happen. We launch Friday. If there are bugs, we patch them Monday. It is called agile development. Look it up. That is not agile, that is reckless, Oliver argued, showing a rare spine. If we lose data, it is a public relations nightmare. I cannot sign off on this. There was a long pause. The espresso machine stopped hissing. You do not have to sign off, Oliver, Jeffrey said, his voice dropping to a cold, menacing whisper. I already told Woodward the code is ready. If you contradict me in the stand-up meeting, you are not just making me look bad, you are making the department look incompetent. And I heard Human Resources is looking to trim the headcount in engineering next month. I would hate for you to be on the wrong list. My hand froze on the wrench under the sink. My breath caught in my throat. This was not just arrogance. This was blackmail. This was gambling with the company's reputation to save his own face. Oliver went silent. I could practically hear his spirit breaking. He had student loans, rent, and no political capital to fight a guy who played golf with the vice presidents. Okay, Oliver whispered, I will patch it as best I can. That is the spirit, Jeffrey said, clapping his hands. Team player, I love it. Hey, grab me a sugar packet while you are there. They walked out. I stayed under the sink for a long time, the smell of damp wood and moldy darkness feeling entirely appropriate. I felt sick. This was what my company had become, a place where innovators were bullied into silence by imitators. I crawled out, my knees cracking, and washed my hands in the sink they had just used. I looked at my face in the chrome reflection of the faucet. It looked tired, but beneath the fatigue, the steel was hardening. I was not just going to fire Jeffrey. That was too easy. Firing him was a mere transaction. I needed to perform a complete corporate exorcism. I pulled out my phone, a burner flip phone I used for my cover, and dialed a number from memory. It went to a secure voicemail box that only 3 people in the world knew about. The head of internal auditing, a woman named Audrey, whom I had hired 15 years ago. Audrey, I said, my voice low and authoritative. It is Howard. Do not ask where I am. I need you to flag all code commits from the 12th floor product team. Specifically, look for a forced push scheduled for Friday. And Audrey, do not let that update go live. Sandbox it. Let them think it is live, but keep it isolated in a test environment. I want to see exactly what happens when it crashes, and I want the logs preserved. I hung up. Jeffrey wanted to play chicken with a cliff. Fine. I was going to move the cliff. There is a specific kind of loneliness that comes from being in a room full of people who have decided you do not exist. It is not the solitude of a mountaintop. It is the solitude of a ghost. By the fourth week, I was haunting the executive floor. I was sent into the strategy meeting because someone had spilled a green smoothie. The room was filled with executives, and Jeffrey's director, Preston, was leading. Preston was everything Jeffrey wanted to be: loud, wealthy, and completely detached from reality. I entered quietly, bucket in tow. No one stopped talking. The issue is not the product, Preston was saying, pointing a laser pointer at a graph trending downward. The issue is the legacy drag. We have too many support staff. We need to trim the fat. I sprayed the green sludge on the table. Trim the fat, I thought. Funny coming from a man whose expense account includes client dinners at steakhouses that charge $50 for a baked potato. Exactly, another vice president agreed. We need a leaner model. Are we paying full benefits for support? It is a cost center. I scrubbed the table, the rhythm of my arm moving back and forth. They were talking about people I knew, not just red ink on a spreadsheet. Don't get me started on facilities. Preston laughed, spinning a pen. I mean, look at this place. Do we really need a battalion of janitors? Half the time I do not even know what they do. I froze. I was standing 3 feet away, my hand on the table. The disconnect was so profound it was almost psychedelic. He was looking at the graph, I was cleaning his mess, and he was asking what I did. I finished cleaning, stood up, and navigated the bucket around his chair. He did not move his legs. I had to lift the heavy bucket over his expensive shoes. Watch it, he snapped, brushing a speck of dust from his pants without looking at me. I walked out, my heart hammering a rhythm of pure cold fury. That afternoon, I went to the server room. The secure server room was accessible to the man with the mop because dust is the enemy of servers. I locked the door from the inside, sat at the terminal, and my fingers flew across the keyboard. I was not Howie the cleaner anymore. I was Howard Vance, lead architect. I pulled up Preston's departmental logs, Jeffrey's project files, and the human resources complaints database. I saw the patterns, the muffled complaints, and the restructuring plans that were just code for firing the people who asked questions. I found a folder on Jeffrey's shared drive titled Quarter 4 Strategy. I opened it. It was not a strategy, it was a hit list. It was a detailed plan to discredit the current Vice President Woodward by framing him for the data migration failure. The very failure Jeffrey was engineering with Oliver's code. He was going to crash the system, blame his boss, and step in as the savior. It was documented, and I copied the folder to a secure drive. It was Friday afternoon. Jeffrey was already celebrating a victory that had not happened. I was in the 12th floor kitchenette emptying the trash when Jeffrey walked in with 2 other junior associates, Joel and Keith. They were laughing that loud, braying laughter that signals a pack mentality. I am telling you, it was hilarious, Jeffrey was saying. Then he saw me. He was holding a half-eaten chocolate donut, a jelly-filled powdered sugar mess. He looked at Joel, then at me, a smirk curling his lips. Watch this, he whispered, loud enough for me to hear. He walked over to the trash can where I was bent over, changing the bag. Whoops, he said. He dropped the donut, but not in the can. He dropped it directly onto my head. The powdered sugar puffed into my hair, and the sticky jelly smeared against my neck. It was a wet, humiliating impact. I froze. The shock was physical. Oh, my bad, Jeffrey exclaimed with fake concern, slipped out of my hand. Gravity, right? It is a killer. Joel and Keith were snickering. I stood up slowly and turned around. I could feel the jelly sliding down my collar and the heat of rage rising in my cheeks. I looked Jeffrey in the eye. For the first time, I did not look at his shoes. I looked right into his watery, soulless pupils. You did that on purpose, I said, my voice low and steady. Jeffrey's smile faltered for a microsecond, then hardened. He stepped closer. Excuse me, he said in a menacing whisper. I think you are confused. Accidents happen, just like it would be an accident if a complaint was filed about your attitude. I hear the contracting agency has a zero-tolerance policy for rudeness. You need this job, don't you, Howie? Clean it up, he said, gesturing to the floor, and don't talk to me unless I pay you. You are here to serve, not to speak. He turned and walked out. I stood there shaking with a rage so pure it felt like a diamond. I washed the jelly out of my hair with a brace of soap and looked in the mirror. You want to play gravity, Jeffrey? Fine. Let us test the physics of a free fall. I stayed in the building that night, pulled the camera footage from the kitchenette, and saved the clip. Jeffrey Collins, physical harassment, 2 o'clock. I compiled it all, the code sabotage, the blackmail, the expense fraud. I created a master file and named it The Cleanse. Harvest time was coming. The email went out on Monday morning at 9 sharp, pinging on 3,000 devices simultaneously. Subject: Mandatory all-hands meeting, Q3 strategic update. Attendance is mandatory for all staff. We will be joined by founder Howard Vance for a special address. I was mopping the hallway when the notification hit, and I saw heads pop up like prairie dogs. Howard Vance, I heard a designer whisper. He is a legend. Then I heard Jeffrey leaning back in his chair. Great, he groaned. The founder. Just what we need. A history lesson from the grandfather of the internet. I bet he is coming to announce he is donating our bonuses to a cat shelter. Preston chuckled from his doorway. Careful, Jeffrey. He is still the majority shareholder. Although word is he is retired, probably just coming to wave and collect a check. I just hope he does not drag it out, Jeffrey said. I have a lunch reservation at noon. I am celebrating the launch. He thought he was minutes away from victory, completely unaware that his software update was sandboxed and his success was a mere simulation. Wednesday morning arrived. The air was crisp. I arrived at the building at 7, wearing a trench coat over my Armani power suit. I swiped my master key card and the security guard looked up in confusion at the high-priority tone. Morning, Dave, I said, using my real voice. Morning, sir, he stammered. I took the elevator to the penthouse holding suite. It was time to suit up. By 9:55, the auditorium was humming with 1,000 conversations. I slipped on my trench coat and sunglasses to walk to the wings. The doors of the VIP elevator opened, and Jeffrey was there with Preston and VP Woodward. They were laughing. Jeffrey saw me, a man in a trench coat, and did not recognize me. Excuse us, Jeffrey said, shouldering me aside to get to the elevator button. Staff entrance is that way. He dismissed me with a wave of his hand. I smiled beneath my collar. Enjoy the elevator ride, Jeffrey, I thought, because it is the last time you are going up. I entered the wings, took off my coat, and the stage manager's eyes went wide. Welcome back, boss, he whispered. Is the mic live? I asked. Hot and ready, he replied. The intro video ended, the screen went black, and the announcer spoke. Please welcome the founder of Apex Cloud Systems, Howard Vance. I stepped into the spotlight, my Italian leather shoes clicking sharply on the wooden stage. I walked to the podium and looked dead at the front row. Silence rippled outward. I found Jeffrey. He was clapping politely with a bored expression, and then he really looked at me. I saw the moment the neurons fired, the confusion turning into sheer terror as the puzzle pieces slammed together. His hands froze. His face went from tan to gray in 3 seconds. He looked like he was having a stroke. Good morning. My voice boomed. For the past month, I have been working undercover as a member of the facilities team. I wore a gray jumpsuit, I scrubbed your toilets, and I listened. I listened to how you speak to each other when you think power is not watching. I saw managers taking credit for their team's work, I said, staring at Preston. And, I said, my voice dropping to a cold calm, I saw an associate product manager throw a donut at a janitor because he thought it was funny. Jeffrey flinched as if I had slapped him. The people around him recoiled. He told the janitor that he was background noise, I said. Well, I cleaned it up and now I am going to clean house. Jeffrey Collins, stand up. Jeffrey did not move. Stand up, I commanded. Slowly, he rose, shaking. You have a launch scheduled for noon today, I said. A product update you pushed despite your engineer warning you it would delete user data, a failure you plan to blame on your vice president. How do I know? Because I read your files while mopping the server room floor. I clicked the remote. The giant screen changed to show the video clip of Jeffrey laughing and dropping the jelly donut on my head. A collective gasp filled the hall. This is not Apex, I said. Your launch has been sandboxed. Your sabotage has been documented, and your employment ends right now. Under California Penal Code Section 518, extortion is a felony, and threatening an engineer's livelihood to force software sabotage is blackmail. Furthermore, under the Federal Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, Title 18 of the United States Code, Section 1030, causing intentional damage to a protected system is a federal crime, and the offensive contact in the kitchenette constitutes battery under California Penal Code Section 242. Security? Escort him out. Two large men in black suits grabbed Jeffrey by the arms. As they dragged him away, I called out, "You missed a spot, Jeffrey." I turned back to the crowd. "This is day one of the new Apex," I said. "We are raising the base wage for all facilities and support staff by 20% immediately, and we are implementing a zero-tolerance policy for disrespect." The applause started at the back, a wild, roaring cheer that swept through the entire room. I walked off the stage. An hour later, I was in my old office. My assistant brought in the squeaky yellow mop bucket and placed it near my desks. I poured a glass of expensive scotch, looked at the bucket, and raised my glass. "To the janitors," I whispered, "and to the messes we clean up." I took a sip, and for the first time in years, the office felt clean.